Good evening, members. Welcome to today's session, our very first session for the year. My name is Darius Nkwasibwe from Next Life Finance, and I'm excited to be hosting you today as we discuss a very important topic, financial discipline. Before we can start today's session, I know that we met a few people who are joining us for the first time. I would like to introduce you to a community of individuals that are very passionate about personal finance. We have WhatsApp communities where we discuss matters related to personal finance, and we discuss this on a daily basis. However, on a weekly basis, we have one topical issue that we discuss in relation to making our finances better. Last year in 2021, we had several sessions, and I'm confident that a number of people were able to pick up lots of insights, which they are applying. I know many people have reached out to me, giving thanks, appreciating for the efforts that we made in 2021. People have shared testimonies about how they have been able to improve their savings cultures, their investment, as well as the things that they do with their money. It is such things that motivate us. It is such motivations that keep us going. So we are confident that even in 2022, we are going to bring you topics that are going to build your capacity in terms of managing your finances in a better way. If by end of 2022, you are not a better person in terms of managing your personal finances, maybe we would say you would have wasted your time here. But I would like to promise that if you come to our sessions, get focused, and apply whatever the different speakers share, you are going to be a changed person in terms of personal finance by end of 2022, because the topics are topics that are chosen to deal with your everyday aspect of personal finance management. Like you'll hear from today's speaker, one of the things that many people struggle with is financial discipline. We are just coming out of the festive season, and I know a couple of people could have struggled with making sure that they keep up with some of the lessons they had learned in our 2021 sessions. But I'm very, very confident that as we start with this session today, you're going to pick up the pieces that could have broken from your habits, and then you'll be able to pick up yourself and become better, so that as you plan for your year, I know some people have already planned, others are still planning, others are yet to plan the kinds of financial goals that they want to achieve at the end of the year. As you learn, without financial discipline, you're going to struggle to achieve some of those goals that you set yourself. It's discipline that keeps you going. It's discipline that keeps you focused. So thank you very much for joining today's session. Keep sharing your expectations in the chat room. If you have any questions along the way, you'll post them in the chat room, and we will be able to pick them up. But also, I'd like to give an opportunity to two people that in case anyone would like to share something about financial discipline, it could be where you struggled, it could be where you want to improve, you could please take some time and share. An opportunity to two people. If you're there and you're willing to share, please raise your hand and I'll give you the opportunity to speak before our main speaker for today. Anyone? All right, thank you. I do not see any hand up, but I see Some people have posted in the chat. Sylvia says she would like to learn attributes of financial discipline. We have Jacinta, the president of Rotaract Trubaga, partnering with us for this session, says, my expectation is that by the end of this session, I should be in position to know what I should consider when thinking about my financial goals. Patrick says he's glad to see Eddie, that it's been years since they last met. So yes, Eddie, you have a friend here who is going to see you after a long time. So members, allow me to introduce today's guest speaker, someone I'll got to know of because of the insights or the nuggets that he shares about different topics of life, but mainly what caught my eye, the audios that he produces about financial discipline. Eddie, you've inspired many from those audios that you share every week. And I'm sure that people who have listened to them and are applying them are learning a great deal. You've been a speaker to this community before, and you're part of our WhatsApp community, so I'm sure you understand the kind of people that you're going to be discussing with. I'm very sure that they are going to learn a great deal from you about how to get better with their personal finances. And I'm sure that by end of this session, someone is going to start a different trajectory. Right now, I'll give the platform to you. Just as a reminder to our people, if you have any questions, post them in the chat room. If you'd like to say something, raise your hand and you'll be chosen. Over to you, Ed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Darius, for that introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am humbled, and it's an honor for me to be one of the first presenters in this community of ours that is doing wonders in people's financial lives. And I think the topic is a good one because it is timely. As we begin the year, we're looking ahead. We've set goals, as it's been said. Some people haven't started setting their goals. Some are in the process, but thank you so much, Darius, for this opportunity. Now, before I continue, if you can hear me clearly, please just type the letter C for clear in the chat room so that I can know that we are at par and that you can hear me clearly before we proceed. Okay, thank you, Darius. Oh, yes, oh my God, Isaac, good. So apparently, I think I am audible. And yes, Lillian, you can also hear me clearly. Mwesa Ruth, Catherine Semogere. Wow, thanks. That is very good. Now, I'll begin with a brief introduction. Again, for those who haven't attended, I made a presentation earlier, which was towards the end of last year, but I'll start by saying, interestingly, I am a qualified teacher of French language. And my qualification is to teach English speakers who are beginning. That is what I qualified to do. And from 1997 to 2007, I taught in a classroom in Bishop Senior School, Mukono. And then I left the classroom to reinvent myself. Today, my passion is to see people succeed when they leave school. It came out of one of the biggest lessons I learned during that period in which I was teaching. So I became an educator in life skills. Let's talk about life skills as the bridge between what you learn at school and becoming successful or using what you have learned after school. Now, because the most versatile life skill I have found and that I know is actually the skill of managing money, I am now also an entrepreneur. Going forward, I have been tasked with the responsibility of talking about financial discipline. Financial discipline is actually very, very, very foundational and fundamental to any form of financial success. And so I wouldn't do justice to this presentation if I do not share with you my story around finances. It's a timeline of a very interesting encounter between me and finances. And so I would like to briefly share it with you. My story begins in September 2006, while I was still a teacher. I happened to receive 5,000 US dollars in my bank account after a successful year of a teacher exchange program where I was particularly sent to India. And then I came back to Uganda. So it was appreciation because it was a successful program. Now, this was 2006, September. In January 2007, all the 5,000 US dollars, which at that time in 2007 was 10 million Uganda shillings. It was all gone. If you calculate, that's around how many months? 4, 5 months. It was finished and there was nothing I had to show for it. Now, fast forward to April. From April to September 2009, I attended a paid internship in the Netherlands, which means I was an intern, but I was being paid. And we were paid, I was receiving 1,000 euros every month. I only had to spend 275 euros for accommodation. The rest, I was free to use as I wanted. And so that was the period between April and September of 2009. In September 2009, towards the end of my internship, the only thing that I had bought for myself that was proof that I had been receiving all this 1,000 euros per month was a laptop that I bought 700 euros. Now, I must tell you that for me to get that laptop of 700 euros in the month of August, which was before September, I had sometimes went hungry because I was determined to have something at the end of all of this. Now, at the end of these 6 months, I could not account at all for 15 million Uganda shillings. Think about that. So imagine I couldn't make anything worthwhile out of 25 million Uganda shillings within a space of 10 months. And the reason is because I lacked financial discipline. Thankfully, I am sharing this story with you because I have made progress. I am no longer where I was, even though I haven't arrived where I want to be. As you soak in this bit of information, if you're still following, please just type for me the letter F for following, so that I know that I still have my audience following and listening, because now we're going to delve into the real thing. Please go to the chat room and type letter F if you are following. Thank you, Victoria. That is good. Patrick. Oh, my friend from All Saints. Samuel. Yes, Samuel. Thank you. Jerome. Good. Now, we're talking about financial discipline. I want to define discipline and simplify that as much as possible, as best as I can. Discipline has many definitions. Thank you, contractor. One of them is discipline can mean or refer to a subject that is studied at a university. For example, philosophy, psychology, or even finance. And the other definition of discipline is enforcing obedience. This is where disobedience is corrected using punishment. That is also called disciplining. Now, my definition of discipline is simply a success habit. Now, a habit is an action that you do actually without thinking so much about it. It's almost automatic. Or actually, let's say it is an action that is automatic. Like if you have been driving a car for over 6 months, you don't look down at the pedals every time you want to brake. So that has become a habit. You now can focus on the road better. And so financial discipline, therefore, is a collection of successful money habits. I think that is a working and the best one of the best definitions that we can use as we try to understand what financial discipline really is. As we continue, what does being lacking of financial discipline look like? I want you to listen to some of these statements here and see which one applies to you or to someone you know. If you frequently have mobile money debt, it has many names depending on which network you are in. There is Beta Co. I don't know if that one is for mobile money, but well, I don't know some or remember some of the definitions they are given. They have given very fancy names, but if you always have mobile money debt, then I must say that you are lacking in financial discipline. If you frequently have airtime debt on your phone, this is a sign that you lack financial discipline. If you've never bought a book, you've never watched a video or an audio, listened to an audio, or attended a seminar on financial education or financial literacy, then you lack financial discipline. There's no way you could have a financial discipline if you haven't interacted with information through such mediums. If you don't tithe, and this is not accidental, then you lack financial discipline. Now, we all know people that will have lent money. If you have lent someone money, type M for me here in the chat room. If you have lent someone money, I don't know, but this one is a serious point. If you have lent someone money, hey, yeah, good. Thank you, Darius. Anyone else? Bruce? Yeah. Now, we all know sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're family. But we know those that will never pay at this point in time. You know them. Now, let me say something. If when you think about that family member or friend whom you lent money, and you know that that person is not going to pay you back, if it gets you very angry, then I will say this: you lack financial discipline. Remember what I said about what I have discovered, that money management is one of the most versatile life skill for anyone to acquire. In other words, its relationship to lending people money who will never pay us back is that learning how to manage money also helps you to grow your emotional intelligence, how to master your emotions and not to be ruled by them. By the way, that is the key thing about managing money. Continuing, if you do not know the difference between active income and residual income, if you don't know the difference between capital gains and cash flow, if you don't know the difference between gross income and net income, then it is very difficult for you to say that you have financial discipline. I have just picked out a few of these, but these are very critical and very important. So you need to listen and take them seriously. When we talk about financial discipline, it's not just about how much money you make or how much money you earn. For me, my understanding, which is practical and leads to tangible results, is that financial discipline revolves around how much of the money that you earn are you able to keep. I use the word keep specifically. Some people refer to it as saving, but I don't want to use save because the word save has become very controversial, I should say, or abused, in my opinion, from what I have listened to, because so many people who encourage others to save actually paint the picture that you can achieve financial freedom by saving money possible. I hope Darius will invite me again soon to talk about Kali. You become a loser the moment you start believing in financial freedom coming from saving money. That's a topic for another day. However, saving or keeping is a stage, and it is very critical in getting financial freedom or acquiring financial discipline, because it is the second stage of financial freedom. The first stage is to earn the money. The second stage is to keep a part of that money, a bit of it, and then to grow your money. It is smarter, and every successful investor which is growing money will tell you that it is better to save, to invest money that you have kept. I have seen a very huge error happening around our communities and in our society, where people invest money that they earn. In other words, they skip the part of keeping, and they get money as they earn it and invest it. That leads to frustration. That is the reason why we have very few people actually successfully investing. And that is something you need to note if you are listening to me now. That's why it's important to learn to keep some of the money you earn, and that which you keep is what you dedicate to investing. We shall later on look at that as we continue. So your success, your journey for success as acquiring a financial discipline begins when you shift your focus from how much money you are making to how much money you are keeping of that which you make. George Clason, who is the author of The Richest Man in Babylon, has a famous and popular statement in that book, The Richest Man in Babylon. And he says, 1/10 of all the money you earn is yours to keep. Now, if you make this statement a foundational and fundamental part of your financial life, then I can guarantee that you have begun your journey to becoming financially disciplined, and you will see results. If you can capture that and keep it in your mind, 1/10 of all the money that you earn is yours to keep. Having understood that, if you're still with me, please type the letter F in the chat room. If you're still engaging, if you're still listening, as we continue, please type for me the letter F in the chat room. I want to see how many people are still following and alert. Yes, Mafito, thank you very much. That is very good. Lydian, Judith, oh yeah, that's good. Atibo, Amiza Ali, good, great, great. Okay. Now the question then would be, if you have heard and listened carefully and learned something from what I have said, the question would then be, how do you start to develop a financial discipline? This is what I usually recommend. Oh, Sheila Duga, welcome. Thank you, you're following, good. This is what I recommend because I have gotten very successful results from it. It is to begin financial discipline, you need to get into the habit of apportioning your money. Do you remember the time when, I don't know if we've gone through different primary schools, but there's a time where in school, we were learning mathematics and we had sticks to help us learn. Those were our Ugandan abacuses, if you'd call it that, with sticks. So you start dividing tens, making ones and hundreds. Anyone remember that? Type letter R in the chat room if you remember using sticks to learn mathematics. In primary school, that's where it usually was. Anyone? I don't have anyone in the chat room today. Okay. Yes, Mafito, I think you remember that. Don't worry, people won't guess your age if you say that. Now, apportioning is the same thing that we need to do with your money. When you receive money, any amount of money at any point, you need to start apportioning it. And this is what I want to share with you, how I do it with success and with results. First thing, when you get any amount of money, and now here I also want to put to add one thing, a PS as we call it. Do not think about only your salary. This should be done because a habit has to cut across. How you do something is how you do everything. If you restrict this to your salary, there's going to be a problem because then you're still getting into that compartmentalization. That's one of the challenges for developing good disciplines. You need to be what they call holistic. What you do here, you should do elsewhere. Those who are mathematicians or who did math, you remember what you do on the left side of the equal sign either is reversed, but something also has to happen on the right side of the equal sign. So this is how it is best done. The first thing you do, take off 10% as tithe. This is not instruction, it is suggestion. I know that tithe is a controversial issue, but I will assuredly tell you that if you don't get into the habit of tithing, you are setting yourself up to struggle as you try and achieve financial freedom. I'm not going to define tithing because that's outside the scope of what we are doing today. The second 10% is to pay yourself. The paying yourself that George Clason in The Richest Man of Babylon talks about. Now, paying yourself is putting money aside, the keeping I talked about, the money that you invest. So paying yourself, you do not spend that money. It is just to be invested. That is what it means. And actually, that is the 10th that is yours to keep. The next 10% is play spending. I would labor to explain this again a little more because this is the lack of knowing what play spending and what it represents is what has caused frustration around keeping money or attaining or developing financial freedom. Play spending is spending money on something that makes you feel rich. Remember, you can't go somewhere physically where you haven't been in your mind. You cannot be rich if you haven't seen yourself rich. Many of us use the reverse of that. Many people are sick because they see themselves sick in the mind. That is just a little illustration of how powerful that law of nature is. And so play spending gives you an opportunity to balance the ability to keep money. How? You know, if you keep saving or keeping money so much, you know, with just the goal of keeping, you have two parts to you. There's the part of you that wants to spend. It's just how we are naturally designed. And so if you keep saving without the knowledge that you need to spend, the part of you that wants to spend will frustrate you. And so many of you will agree with me that you've experienced this, especially those who have tried to obsessively save money, keep money. It's always frustrated by the part of you, which is a normal part of you that wants to spend. And so that's why we bring in play spending, because play spending helps you to become holistic, to balance it. Now, if you are managing it, then you do not spend beyond what you need. That is why you put aside a certain amount specifically to do that. The third one, no, the fourth this time, is generosity, being generous. There's something interesting I learned on my journey for generosity, which is that if you're not generous, generosity is the key to abundance. And abundance is in line with financial freedom. Okay? So generosity, the question is, it's giving. You give to people, those in need and those who are not in need. You give to those who, you don't decide. There's some of these challenges where we tend to give only those who are in need. You can also give those who physically or visibly don't appear to need. That's what generosity is about. Question is, how do you know that you've become generous? If you're like me, which is most of us, most people, you start to give with the expectation to receive or the motivation to receive. You give to receive. That's where we all start from. But if you realize that you've gotten to the point where you're giving because you have, not in order to get, that is a sign. You see, they say that if you can't measure something, then you can't do it well. That is one of the best ways to measure whether you have become generous. The actions, outward actions may be the same. But if your motivation has changed from giving in order to receive to giving because you have, then know that now you are a generous person. So you think about that. And finally, the fourth one is education. This is also very critical. You need to sharpen your axe, as I usually call it. Invest in yourself, invest in learning, invest in materials that help you to learn and understand how to manage money and how money works, because that is very important. And so those are four. There are 5 breakdowns, which total to 50%. Now, the other 50% of the money you earn is to take care of all the other needs. I bundled that together. Some people divide that up, but for me, I just keep that as it's much easier to deal with that way, knowing that 50% is for meeting other needs outside of these 5, which are tithing, paying yourself, play spending, generosity, and education. Okay. As I conclude, many people fail to create habits and I have observed this because of one critical question that so many of us have failed to understand and to ask. The question is, every time you start to do something, you need to ask yourself, how long can I sustain this activity, this action? Because a habit is something that you do for all your life. It's not one of those things that you do to achieve something and then stop. And the way habit comes is that you first do it deliberately until your brain, your conscious brain, hands it over to your unconscious brain, and then it becomes automatic. Before that can happen, you need to ask yourself, how long can I sustain this? I've seen so many people failing to create habits. They start and fail because of not asking themselves this question. Because if you want to develop a habit and you can't sustain the active part of it, then I'm going to explain what you can do better, which is start with something that you like. On that note, I want to share with you the 5 steps that I believe are the most ideal to create the best habit, or to create any habit that you want or desire to have as a habit in your life. But before we continue, I still want to know if you guys are still with me. Type letter G in the chat room if you're still following. I might be talking alone and having gone off already. Okay, Atibo, that's good. I still have a few people following. Solomon, that's nice, because this part is critical. Yes, the Infinix Note 11 Pro. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Blessing. Okay, so you're following now. These are the 5 steps, 5 things. Let me call them 5 steps that I use. I use to develop any success habit I want, and you can do that too. The first one is to find something that you love or enjoy to do. You will agree with me if you're listening to me now that there is something, at least one thing, or there might be many, that you enjoy doing. That should be the first. Yes, there might be you want to develop financial disciplines, which are success habits around managing money. But you start with something, because when you start with a habit that you like and create something, a habit out of what you enjoy doing, the way you do it is the way you do all others. And it's what we call momentum. You gain momentum for all others. So the first thing is to find something that you love or enjoy to do. Secondly, do it every day. Thirdly, give yourself a specific duration, maybe 30 minutes. That's what I use as a standard, and I spend doing that 30 minutes. That is good enough. That is number 3. 4, do it at the same time every day. Have you ever heard this statement that we are creatures of habit? That is in our design as human beings. We are creatures of habit. So you are just actually assisting nature to get to where you want to go. So do it at the same time every day. And finally, do it in the same place every day. There's something interesting about doing something within the same space every time you do it. That is how you quickly get to develop a simple activity and turn it into a habit. Now, if you successfully develop one habit, the one that you love, you can use the same formula, if you want to call it a formula, to develop any success habit that you want. Any. I have done it. I don't want I'm not going to list the habits that I have developed that way, but there are many. And every time I'm adding on more and more and more. And it's exciting to have disciplines. So I can guarantee you that it will happen. You will have that. Am I still with you? I want to conclude and finish now, because I would love to get some questions from you. So now that you've had this, and you've had what I believe financial discipline is about, you change your focus, just the highlights. Change your focus from the money that you earn to what you keep. That is the start of thinking about financial discipline. And then how to create a success habit. Find something that you love or enjoy to do. Number 2, do it every day. Number 3, give yourself a specific duration every time you do it. I would recommend 30 minutes or 15 if 30 is too long for you. Number 4, do it at the same time every day. And finally, number 5, do it in the same place every day until it becomes a habit. Now, there's one of the habits, one of our platforms, we founded Platinum Nuggets. That's where Darius, our host here today, has interacted with the life skills that I share in form of short audios. But one of the things we do there is, if you love to read the Bible, then you can join us on WhatsApp, just our WhatsApp platform, because we post there. One of the best things that we have successfully helped people to do is to learn to read the Bible through the whole year and finish it. And so we do that by giving small portions every day, daily portions. And so that is one. It's simply reading the Bible. Okay, and so you can join us there using our WhatsApp number, which is +256 702. I'll type it into the chat room. +256 702 809040. And then you can follow and learn that, because it's one of the ways, one of the disciplines, or one of the ways in which you can begin to develop a success habit and then take it into the financial realm with your personal finances. On that note, I want to thank you so much for listening to me and for following through the presentation. Thank you so much, Darius, and I will attempt to answer some of the questions from you, the listeners. I thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Eddie, for sharing with us these nuggets that we can use to create better disciplines that will help us to become better at managing our personal finance. You've shared a lot. You've started by giving us your story of how you failed to manage your money when you were offered a paid internship in Europe, and the key lessons that you learned from there. You also took us on a journey how we can pick some nuggets from the great book, The Richest Man in Babylon. Some of those things that we must learn to pay ourselves first from every amount or every income that we generate. Then create room for play spending, or create an account for play spending, which you explained in detail. You also went ahead and emphasized how it is very important to create room for generosity from our finances. You also went ahead and encouraged us to consider learning or education all the time. You also went ahead and shared with us some key nuggets about creating habits. You just shared them just in case anyone has just joined. The nuggets shared include find what you love and enjoy doing, do it every day, give yourself specific timelines or duration. It could be 15 minutes, 10 minutes, it could be 30 minutes a day. Ensure that you do it at the same time every day, and then do it in the same space or same place every day. If you've been part of this session and maybe you want to pick more nuggets about creating habits, you may want to consider a book called Atomic Habits. You also find nuggets that encourage you to start small, but ensure that you do it consistently to be able to develop the habit that you need. So right now, I'd like to give an opportunity to the members on the call to ask questions. So please, you can type your question in the chat room, or you can simply raise your hand and you'll be allowed to unmute and ask your question. I'm very sure that Eddie will be more than excited to share with you, to respond to you, whatever you would have asked. So I'd like to give an opportunity to Sylvia to ask her question. Sylvia, please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you so much, moderator. Thank you so much, Eddie, and the Rotaract Club of Rubaga who have organized this. I want to hear more about income and expenditure, if it is possible with Eddie. Income and expenditure in regard to, much as he talked about spending the 50% on needs, then the other 10%, would someone spend more than what they earn? I would want to hear more from that. Then the other one is about loans. Yes, he talked about people having loans on phones, mobile, I think on mobile phones, but I'd want to hear more on loans in regard to people who prefer to get loans instead of saving and using their saving to invest in their investments. Thank you so much for a start. Let me give an opportunity and best wishes. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Sylvia. As Eddie to respond to your question and more people sharing their questions, Kedwin is asking the title of the book, and the title of the book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. So if you check out that book, maybe you can build on what Eddie has shared with us today. Eddie, over to you to respond to Sylvia's.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Sylvia, you talked about, you asked many questions, but what I captured, the first one was income and expenses. Is that right? Sylvia, type for me why in the chat room if I'm right. You talked about expenses and income, something like that. How to expenditures, I think. Good. So when it comes to that, what I would want you, the response I want to give is about these things are like, it's when we deal with finances, it's about perception. How do you perceive something? That's why I say that financial discipline is about shifting your focus from I make so much money to I am able to keep this amount of money. In the same way, when you talk about expenses and income, it's important to understand that you need to think about expense. I'll give the example of a swimming pool, because I think you all know what a swimming pool is. I believe so. If you do know what a swimming pool, you type for me yes as I continue to explain here in the chat room. Whoever understands what a swimming pool is, because it's the illustration I want to give. For a swimming pool to be functional and be called a good swimming pool in which people can swim, it has two kinds of, it has water, of course, but it has two pipes. One brings the water in and another one drains it out. So in other words, the water in a swimming pool is not stagnant. When it stagnates, that's a pond. And ponds, you know, the issues around ponds are different from those in swimming pools. And so the same way you have to think about handling money, what you make and how you spend. Expenses, to a swimming pool, those two pipes are necessary. It can't cut off one. It will cease to be a swimming pool if you cut off one. In the same way, expenses are inevitable. They are part of life. You have to spend. That's why it's a perception thing. You need to understand right from now that you are going to spend as part of life. And so for you to achieve a discipline or to achieve financial freedom the way you'd want it, or security, because some people prefer financial security to financial freedom, you have to find how to balance what you spend with what you earn. That's the key thing. That is the most important part that I want to explain here. And so financial comfort, financial security, financial freedom comes when the reality is that you are spending less than you are earning. That is why we're talking about discipline. It takes discipline to do that. Then you talked about people who borrow instead of, borrowing money instead of saving or keeping money. That is also a habit. If you are borrowing to live, then that is a problem. Because what that simply means is that on top of spending, at what point then are you going to reduce or have to, because then that means it's like when money comes into you, when money comes to you, it just flows out. Sometimes we refer to that as financial hemorrhaging. That is losing more blood than your body needs to, and that is dangerous. So when you talk to me about, when we talk about expenses, it's important for you to figure out how do you spend less. Sometimes you make sacrifices. Sacrifices are not necessarily permanent. You can choose. That's why I say that learning to manage money comes with also the ability to manage your emotions. Spending, did you know that spending is an emotional activity or action? It is. If you want to prove it, try to understand the way adverts are designed. Advertisement is designed to target your emotions because spending is emotional. Now, if you are able to rule over your emotions, then you understand this statement I'm going to make, that you choose to delay instant gratification for future freedom, for future security. In other words, you make certain sacrifices, and that comes into, what comes into question here is the understanding of the difference between what you want and what you need. Without going back into a class of that, it's simply put, it's like this. You can't live without what you need, but you can live and survive and even thrive with some of the things that, without some of the things that you want. That is the basic distinction between the two. It takes investment, it takes time to understand the difference between the two. And so that's how I want to respond to the issue of expenses and income. I don't remember the other question you asked, because you had asked so many. I don't know if, Sylvia, if you had typed it into the chat room, I don't know if you put it there, but I'm kind of forgetting which one else you asked.
Thank you, Eddie.
One.
The other question was about people who prefer to use loans instead of money that they have saved. What would be your say about that? Sylvia, you can confirm by typing in the chat if that's correct.
Yeah, she is. Yes. Thank you so much. Now that is also very important. That's the reason why I was saying that we shall come back to talk about this in detail, about what money is today. Now, people who prefer to use loans rather than the money that they've earned, it's a bit tricky, but this is the thing. Loans are debt. There are two kinds of debt. There's what we call bad debt, and there's what we call good debt. Bad debt is simply put as this. It is money that you borrow, that's bad debt. Money that you borrow and you yourself have to pay it back. That's bad debt, and that is it's another, I didn't add it here, but that is one of the signs. If you're doing that, then you're lacking financial discipline. Good debt, however, is money that you borrow and someone else pays it back. We call that leverage. That's why I said going into explaining how that happens is a bit of a long process. It will require another session. But let me probably briefly explain that. How do you borrow money and someone else pays it back? Remember, we borrow, technically or ideally, we borrow money from banks. So I want to give you a very simple example. Imagine that there is a cow. You borrow money. A cow is 100,000 shillings. Yeah, 100,000 shillings. That's the best illustration. I want to briefly explain this. So you go to the bank, and the bank is willing to lend you 80,000 shillings, but it requires you to make a down payment of 20,000 to that cow. You have therefore paid 20,000 for the cow. The bank has added 80,000 on your 20 to make 100, and the owner of the cow is settled. He has been paid. You take this cow home, and what type of cow you have bought is important. So in order for that to be good debt, you must have bought a dairy cow. So when the cow gets home, you milk it, and then you sell the milk. Now, the terms of repaying the 80,000 to the bank, if the cow's milk that you sell on a daily or monthly is able to pay back the 80,000 that you paid the bank, you're technically not the one paying the loan. It is the cow. And so that's what we call good debt. The reason why I would want a session to teach on this, it's because of the changes that have happened in money that so many people are not aware of. And that is what we call good debt. There are not very many people who do that because not so many people know about that, but it is possible, it works, and it is feasible. So that's how I can explain the difference between good debt and bad debt. It is very, very, very defeating to borrow money when you yourself have to pay it back from your income. That's what I mean. And so that's why we call that bad debt. I hope that is sufficient for now, because I do not intend to go beyond that explanation. Otherwise, that goes out of the scope of what we are talking about here today. Thank you very
much, Eddie. Thank you very much, Eddie, for those responses. Much appreciated. We are getting to the evening of our session today. So I'll pick up a few comments from the chat as well as questions, and then we'll be able, Eddie will respond to them, and we'll close today's session. So I'd like to start with a comment from Susan, who says, thanks, moderator. She takes green tea every morning and works out 3 times a week, and this is working for her perfectly. You can develop good habits. Thanks, Eddie, for sharing. And then Eddie, I'll ask this question and then you respond to it before I can bring up the next question. So Samuel Eyangu is asking, how can I overcome the habits of not acting on what I know? For instance, I can start a habit of recording all my incomes and expenditures, but after a short while, I stop and get bored. What can I do? Over to you, Eddie.
Thank you so much, Darius. Now, the issue of getting, it is, I'll answer that in this way. One, there are 2 options. The first one is recording. First and foremost, recording your call an accountability partner. It's like someone to keep asking you.
We seem to have lost you for 1 minute. If you can start from recording, you can repeat the response from start. Okay. Our speaker seems to be having an issue, probably with internet. Yes, Eddie is back. Eddie, sorry, we had lost you for a minute when you are starting to respond. So if you can please repeat your response so that we pick it up. Eddie, if you could unmute and respond.
And can you hear me now? Sorry. No, because hard or not. Okay. Am I audible? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I do not know what happened, and it just went into that mode of okay. Thanks. Now, what I was saying is to get an accountability partner for that. Someone who will prompt you, and you decide, you choose. You will be accountable to that person. You will present to them what you've recorded as your financial, either expenses. And if that's, I believe that's which we in developed countries where you have a bookkeeper, you still have to do some form of recording. Either you demand to get receipts, maybe. Oh, have I gone off again? Hello?
Yeah. It seems you're breaking. Probably there's an issue with your network at the moment.
The network,
but
perhaps.
yes, right now we can get you if you can respond.
Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say, is that you get someone whom you are accountable to, somebody that you trust, someone that you're comfortable with, who is going to, and then you decide maybe at the end of every week, you will be showing them what you have documented. As you do that, because it's easier, just getting an accountability partner is again putting a burden on the other person to decide when to demand it from you. You both agree that I'll be giving you an opportunity to see my weekly activity, what I have recorded from my expenses and income and all that, things like that. So I hope that helps. But the bottom line is coming down to having an accountability partner, someone you are accountable to, and you agree on how frequently they'll be looking at what you have recorded. So the knowledge of that it's going to be demanded from you is what can help you going. We all suffer different forms of what we call old man procrastination, because that is the issue at play here. But with someone to account to, it becomes much easier. That's how I can respond to that question. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Eddie. We had Lauben, who was thanking you for the presentation and also recommending members to read a book titled No Excuse, Self-Discipline by Brian Tracy. And then someone also was asking, most of us make resolutions like losing weight and exercising at least 3 times a week. But after like 2 weeks, the momentum dies out and we start giving excuses of work, jam, no time, etc. How can we be consistent and develop the discipline to succeed? And then lastly, you respond to them together. Someone is asking, how about buying land? Is it bad debt or good debt? Over to you, Eddie.
Thank you, Darius. Now, you initially talked about how people start with a lot of vigor and then they slowly die out, and the energy dies out. It comes down to those 5 steps that I gave you earlier about how to develop a success habit. One of the reasons is it's natural when you're excited about doing an activity, about starting a target, meeting a resolution, lose weight, become a specific weight or gain weight, which is rarely done, but it is also happening. And it's natural to be excited. And in the heat of the moment, you might bite more than you can swallow. That's usually the problem, is biting more than you can swallow. That's why I say that why many people fail at creating habits is not asking that question. For how long can I sustain this? That's the risk. That's the reason why in these five steps I gave, number 3 is giving yourself a specific duration, which is small. You can, it may not be a duration, it might be push-ups or exercises. But the thing is, take small bits. Now, what this does is you tap into the gifts that nature has given us. I don't know how many of you have heard of the law of compounding. The law of compounding, if you're dealing with finances, you must know it. Find out what it is. That one we shall not explain. But whenever you want to start and do something successfully, as an answer to the question, how long can I sustain this activity? You therefore take small, chewable, swallowable bits. Don't worry, you may not see results in a week or 2 weeks, but because the law of compounding is a law of nature and it works, you will eventually begin to see results. So I want to encourage people who have set goals, either whether financial or physical goals for physical health, personal health. I beseech you, let me use that word, to desist from this microwave thinking about life, getting results instantly. It doesn't work because you will fail again and again. And when we fail too many times, we eventually give up. Get into it for the long haul. Look at the end, at the goal that you want, and start. Don't worry if you do not see results in the first 30 days. Just keep going. Get to the point where you enjoy it. Because once you enjoy it, then it doesn't matter whether you can see physical results or not. And so please, if you want to, that's the one thing I want to leave with you. If there's anything you're going to take away from here, we're talking about a discipline. Learn to divorce your thinking from this instant results mentality. It is actually the reason why we fail a lot. And the second question was about land, buying land. Is it bad debt or good debt? No, the question is, how do you come across the money that you're using to buy the land? It's true that land appreciates over time. But you see, with what I'll explain, the little I can explain now about money and the way it works currently, is that if you have borrowed that money and you buy land, that is not a dairy cow. At best, that is a beef cow that you're going to slaughter. That's why I was talking about the difference between capital gains and cash flow. We shall explain that in future. But now, the question becomes, was that money you had kept as the second stage of achieving financial freedom? If it is, then pay the land and start keeping more, because that is not debt. But if you're borrowing money to buy land, and in which land you cannot, it's not profitable right away. In other words, the land cannot pay back your loan. That is bad debt. And it has gotten so many people into problems. Don't be among those if you have listened to me today. There have to be other better ways, as we said. If you can keep enough money over time, then you can buy land. The key issue is the debt that can help you improve and get to your financial goals is money which you will borrow and someone else pays back for you, not you paying it back. I hope that explains that question. Over to you, Darius.
Yes, thank you, Eddie, for sharing with us those nuggets. I'm very sure that audience today has picked a great deal and that they are going to get better with creating disciplines that help them to achieve their financial goals. I saw someone asking, so do I need to get a consultant to be my accountability partner? It doesn't have to be the case. You can Your accountability partner could be your wife. Your accountability partner could be a co-worker. Your accountability partner could be a friend. Like, you get someone that you can be able to access, that you're free to share the information that you want to share, and someone you know will be in a position to hold you accountable. It's not someone who will fear you. It's not someone like who will fear to call you out in case you're failing, or someone who is intimidated by you. But also, if you can afford it, once in a while you can utilize the services of a coach. Typically, a coach is going to be paid to make sure that you're held accountable. A coach doesn't do for you, but over time, maybe at a specific date and time that you would have agreed with the coach, they'll come to you and they will discuss with you. They will typically ask you questions that will help you to discover where you may be failing and what you may need to start to be able to create the kinds of habits that you need. Typically, coaches will help you to fulfill your potential in whichever area that you may be lacking. I know many of us think that a coach is only for sports people. Maybe someone is running, someone is a footballer also. But you could also get a coach for your personal finances, a coach for your career, a coach for anything that you'd like to do. Typically, if you do it well, you'll find someone who is well trained, or someone who is in a better position to hold you accountable. A coach may require you to pay for them for the because they invest to become coaches. But like I said, an accountability partner doesn't have to be someone that you must pay a consultant. You can always look around you. Lastly, before we close today's session, I would like to encourage you, please visit our YouTube channel. I've posted the link in the chat room so that you can be able to view the recordings from the previous sessions, as well as the recording for this very session, should you need it tomorrow or in the near future. The channel is called Personal Finance with Darius. So please be sure to check it out and check out some of the sessions that we've had previously, especially if today was your first time to join us. If you'd like a deeper discussion, a deeper reflection about personal finances, and you'd like to engage me or Eddie at that, you can please always get in touch. But one of the things that we do at Next Life Finance is to coach people, is to help people develop the kinds of habits that they need to become better with personal finance management. Having said that, allow me to thank Eddie for having volunteered his time to come and be part of this session today. Thank you, Eddie, for sharing those nuggets. I know you've invested a lot to get where you are today so that you're in a position to share this kind of information with our audience. For you to spare some time on your Sunday evening where you could be doing something else is not a small thing that we take for granted. So once again, like I always do, thank you very much for your commitment to helping people become better with their life and personal finances. And to the audience, thank you very much for having been part of today's session. I do hope that you've learned a great deal. Our joy comes from seeing you practice. So please go on after today's session, start that one habit, and then come back to me and say that, Darius, I started this, and this is the progress that I'm making. The good thing that the nuggets that Eddie shared go beyond personal finances. I had lots of testimonies from last year, from the sessions that we had, and probably one of these days we will have someone sharing. We'll have some people sharing their testimonies on the things that they have been able to achieve as a result of being part of our community. So thank you very much for having been part of today's session. I wish you a great week ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Darius.
You're welcome, Eddie.